It was the inky blackness of May 7th, 1943, in the vast expanse of the mid-Atlantic, where the ocean's surface heaved like a living entity under a starless sky, the air thick with the salty chill of spray and the faint, oily tang of diesel exhaust seeping from the conning tower of U-297 as it surfaced for a battery recharge. Captain Lieutenant Eric Muller, his face gaunt from weeks at sea, inhaled the crisp night breeze laced with the distant rumble of waves crashing against the hull. The only sounds the low thrum of idling engines and the creak of metal expanding in the cold. Crewmen scanned the horizon with binoculars, their breaths forming fleeting mists, confident in the cloak of darkness that had shielded wolf packs for years. But then a new whisper pierced the void, a faint, electronic ping echoing from nowhere, followed by the growing whine of approaching aircraft engines, invisible harbingers that would soon illuminate the submarine in a blinding lee light beam, sealing its fate in a hail of depth charges. This instant, as depth bombs churned the sea into froth around the doomed U-boat, was emblematic of a turning tide in the Battle of the Atlantic, where American technological prowess, embodied in radar innovations, began dismantling the once formidable U-boat menace that had threatened to starve Britain into submission. To comprehend the pivotal shift heralded by that May encounter, one must delve into the protracted struggle for the Atlantic Sea lanes that defined the war's logistical backbone. From September 1939, when Germany unleashed its U-boat fleet under Admiral Karl Donit's command, the Battle of the Atlantic became a grim contest of endurance, with submarines tasked to sever Allied supply lines ferrying troops, fuel, and material from North America to Europe. Donitz, envisioning a tonnage war, aimed to sink merchant shipping faster than it could be replaced, calculating that 700,000 tons monthly would force Britain's capitulation. Early successes, the happy time from June 1940 to March 1941, saw U-boats claim 471 ships, totaling over 2.6 million tons, exploiting surface night attacks and rudimentary Allied defenses lacking effective detection beyond visual range. The United States, initially neutral but increasingly supportive via Lend-Lease from March 1941, extended its neutrality patrols to escort convoys halfway across the Atlantic, but Pearl Harbor's aftermath in December 1941 drew America fully into the fray, prompting Donit's Operation Drumbeat. U-boats ravaged undefended U.S. East Coast shipping, sinking 397 vessels for 2 million tons in the first 6 months of 1,942 with minimal losses. This phase underscored the U-boat's initial edge, stealthy, diesel-electric vessels like the Type 7, capable of 17 knots surfaced and 7 submerged, armed with 14 torpedoes and an 88mm deck gun. But Allied responses, particularly American industrial mobilization, began forging countermeasures. Radar, evolving from British chain home systems in 1940, became the linchpin. The cavity magnetron, shared via the Tizard mission in September 1940, enabled cinemetric wavelengths that American firms like Bell Labs and MIT's radiation laboratory mass-produced into ASV, air-to-surface vessel, Mark III sets, detecting small targets like periscopes at 5 miles. This technological leap, combined with Enigma code breaking via US-built bombs, 121 operational by September 1944, tilted the balance, transforming the Atlantic from a U-boat hunting ground into a graveyard for submarines. U-boat commanders, imbued with the Reich's doctrine of technological and racial superiority, embarked on patrols with buoyant expectations, anticipating continued dominance through wolf-pack tactics, where surface boats could outrun escorts at night and submerge to evade detection. They expected Allied convoys to remain vulnerable, their ASTIC sonar ineffective against surface targets and aircraft patrols limited by range, allowing U-boats to shadow and attack with impunity, as in the second happy time off America, where visibility and lax defenses yielded easy prey. Donitz himself projected in 1942 that with 300 operational U-boats, he could sink 700,000 tons monthly, forcing peace. Commanders like Otto Kretschmer, with 47 ships sunk before his capture, boasted of 1 torpedo, 1 ship, viewing American entry as an extension of target-rich waters rather than a threat. Yet, the reality that confronted them from mid-1942 onward was a cascade of inexplicable detections and ambushes. As centimetric radar-equipped Liberators and Catalinas from U.S. Navy squadrons patrolled the mid-Atlantic Black Pit, U-boats surfaced to recharge batteries only to face sudden aerial assaults. Their METOX receivers, designed for metric wavelengths, silent against the new frequencies. In March 1943, convoys HX-229 and SC-122 suffered heavy losses, 21 ships. But by Black May, 43 U-boats perished, many to radar-guided attacks, forcing Donitz to recall patrols from the North Atlantic on May 24th, admitting in his war diary, "We have lost the Battle of the Atlantic." Commanders reported harrowing surprises. U-175 sunk April 17, 1943, by USS Spencer's radar-directed charge after a surfaced approach. Survivors recounted the shock of escorts appearing from fog like phantoms, their pings betraying positions miles away. What they experienced was not the anticipated cat-and-mouse game, but an unrelenting electronic net, where American abundance in radar sets, over 10,000 SCR, 517 shipborne units produced, turned night into day for hunters, leaving U-boats blind and vulnerable. The historical record brims with data underscoring radar's decisive role in the U-boat demise, drawn from Allied after-action reports and German logs that quantify the slaughter. Germany commissioned 1,162 U-boats during the war, but 785 were sunk, over two-thirds, with 28,000 of 39,000 crewmen lost, the highest casualty rate of any branch at 75%. American forces played a pivotal part. U.S. Navy hunter-killer groups, centered on escort carriers like USS Bogue, sank 33 U-boats from May 1943 to July 1945, with radar enabling 24-hour patrols that claimed 16 in the Azores Gap alone in 1943. Total Allied sinkings peaked in 1943 with 237 U-boats destroyed, 41 in May alone, as centimetric radar on 200B, 24 Liberators, transferred to RAF Coastal Command but equipped with US-made H-2S sets, closed the air cover gap, detecting 90% of surface submarines at 10 miles. By 1944, snorkel-equipped U-boats attempted evasion, but improved U.S. microwave radar like the APS-15 pierced the snorkel plume, sinking 72 that year. In 1945, 153 fell, including U-320, the last in combat, to a radar-guided RAF Catalina on May 7th. Surface actions amplified this. Destroyers like USS Bowery rammed U-405 in November 1943 after radar lock, both sinking in a mutual embrace. Donitz's post-war interrogation revealed the dismay. The introduction of radar by the enemy had a disastrous effect. It robbed the U-boats of their chief weapon, surprise. U.S. production scaled radar from prototypes to fleets. By war's end, 100,000 sets equipped ships and planes, with the SCR 584 ground radar adapted for sea-use tracking periscopes at 3 miles. Merchant losses plummeted from 7.6 million tons in 1942 to 1.4 million in 1944 as radar-enabled convoys evaded packs, with U.S.-built Liberty ships, 2,710 produced, replacing sinkings at rates Germany couldn't match. This electronic ping of radar recurred as a chilling symbol throughout the campaign, a sharp, insistent tone emanating from American ingenuity, representing the abundance of a democratic society where collaborative labs like MIT's Rad Lab, employing 4,000 diverse scientists, innovated without authoritarian constraints, overwhelming the Reich's isolated efforts. The transformation among U-boat commanders was profound, morphing from predatory elation to a fatalistic resignation that cracked the ideological veneer of Nazi invincibility. Initially, aces like Kretschmer and Preen racked up tonnage with surfaced ambushes, their logs brimming with triumph. But as radar pings heralded doom, U-99 sunk March 17, 1941, after a radar-directed attack by HMS Walker. Survivors spoke of ghost ships appearing unbidden, eroding confidence in stealth. By Black May, Donut's staff noted crews returning shell-shocked, their ideology of Aryan mastery faltering against impersonal technology. One commander, Gunther Hessler, Donut's son-in-law, admitted post-war that radar's outstanding developments defeated them, shifting blame from manpower to material. This realization permeated the U-boat arm. Patrols dwindled from 100 operational boats in 1943 to 40 by 1944 with schnorkels, a desperate adaptation, failing to counter microwave pings that detected exhaust plumes, leading to 65 schnorkel-equipped losses in 1945. Ideologically, the pings symbolized democracy's edge. Free exchange of ideas via the Tizard mission accelerated innovations, contrasting Germany's compartmentalized research, fostering a post-war German Navy that embraced Allied tech in NATO. Crew morale plummeted. Desertions rose, with some surrendering en masse, as in U-505's capture June 4, 1944 by USS Guadalcanal's task group, yielding Enigma machines that further sealed fates. Donitz, promoted to Grand Admiral in 1943, confided in memoirs that radar robbed them of surprise, transforming aggressive hunters into hunted prey, a psychological inversion that hastened the Reich's collapse. Delving deeper into the technological duel reveals layers of American dominance that accelerated this shift. The cavity magnetron, enabling 10 centimeters wavelengths, was mass-produced into and /APS, 2 sets for PBY Catalinus, detecting U-boats at 20 miles. By 1943, 1,000 equipped U.S. aircraft patrolled from Newfoundland to the Azores, sinking 50 in the Bay of Biscay transit alone. Combined with HF/DF, Huff Duff, direction finders on destroyers like USS Spencer, which triangulated radio bursts to within 5 degrees, radar pings guided charges with 20% hit rates via Hedgehog mortars, sinking U-175 after a 30-minute hunt. U.S. escort carriers, 45 built by 1945, formed 2,200 killer groups that sank 53 U-boats and 1 Japanese sub, their Avenger torpedo bombers radar vectoring to targets like U-118 on June 12, 1943. German responses, Metox, then Naxos for cinemetric bands, came too late. By October 1943, Aphrodite decoys and improved jamming failed as U.S. frequencies hopped, with pings echoing in every failed patrol. In the South Atlantic, U.S.-Brazilian cooperation sank 16 U-boats from 1943 to 1945, radar-equipped PBYs claiming U-199 on July 31, 1943. The ping's symbolism intensified, a product of Bell Labs' 9,000 employees innovating freely. It represented democracy's collaborative abundance, producing 100,000 radar sets versus Germany's 5,000, strangled by bombings. As the war progressed, the emotional chasm widened for U-boat men, their initial bravado yielding to terror at the ping's harbinger. Survivors of U-864 sunk February 9, 1945 by HMS Venture's radar-assisted torpedo, the only sub-to-sub kill, described the sound as death's call, eroding Bushido-like stoicism into pleas for recall. Donit's May 1945 order to surrender, with 156 U-boats scuttled to avoid capture, reflected this broken spirit, his final broadcast lamenting overwhelming material superiority. The ping echoed in every loss, from U-505's intact capture, yielding codebooks that saved 800 ships, to the last U-2511's aborted attack on May 5, 1945. This auditory omen, born of American labs where immigrants like Isidore Rabi contributed Nobel-winning work, symbolized how freedom's diversity fueled innovations that totalitarian rigidity couldn't match. The ping persisted as a motif through the Atlantic's twilight, its tone marking triumphs like Operation Teardrop in April 1945, where U.S. carriers sank 5 U-boats suspected of V-1 launches, radar guiding destroyers to 0 losses. German attempts at acoustic torpedoes sank 24 ships, but were countered by U.S. Foxer noisemakers. with only 5% effectiveness post, 1943. By war's end, Allied convoys, 3,700 with 100,000 sailings, lost just 0.5% to U-boats, radars ping ensuring safe passage for 3 million troops. Post-war analyses by the U.S. Navy's 10th Fleet credited radar with shortening the war by 2 years, saving countless lives through sustained supply. This ideological transmutation culminated as the Reich crumbled, the ping etching a lesson of humility, transforming predatory arrogance into recognition of collective strength, influencing Cold War navies to prioritize technology over ideology. In a hushed epilogue, as the ping of those radars faded over tranquil seas and the Atlantic reclaimed its peace, a timeless truth resonated like echoes on the waves. That sharp electronic tone, forged in the workshops of liberty, embodied not mere detection, but the boundless abundance of democracy, where open minds, united in freedom, wove innovations that pierced the veil of tyranny. It whispered that regimes of division dissolved before the persistent call of shared progress, a legacy inscribed in the depths of 1943, affirming that the vigilant spirit of a free nation, once alerted, safeguards the horizons of history eternally.